time I got drunk, I danced a jig in the middle of my aunt and uncle's living room while my mother, father, and brothers and sisters looked on. I was 8 years old, and my dad had given me a teaspoon of red wine at a holiday dinner. It was too long ago to remember how I felt, but someone snapped a picture, so I know how I looked. Hands on hips, knees lifted high, I wore a black and white polka dot dress with a pleated skirt, white ankle socks, and black patent leather shoes. From my rosy cheeks and mischievous grin, you can tell I was one deliriously happy little girl. The Latin phrase in Vino Veritas translates to, in wine there is truth. And sometimes it does seem that way. Fast forward 15 years. Now I'm sitting in a dark neighborhood bar in the Fenway section of Boston with my boyfriend at the time. The jukebox is playing and we get up to dance. Midway through the song, an old barfly we'd been talking to hoisted himself up off the seat to go to the bathroom. On the way, he grabbed my friend's arm, leaned in, and slurred in a beery Boston brogue, "You should marry this woman. She listens." For years afterward, I thought of myself as the woman who listens. Was that old drunk right? Well, yes and no. Sometimes I listen, and sometimes I don't. That relationship didn't last more than a few years, although in another sweet drunken moment, I did propose to him. That time, we were drinking in a saloon off a country road in central Texas. As the alcohol began its pleasant work of numbing my brain, I glanced at the sawdust strewn on the floor, the rough gray wood of the walls, the swinging doors like the kind in the movies, and I said, "Let's get married. Let's get married here." Wisely, he said no. He must have known I was more in love with the decor than I was with him. In Vino Veritas, in that case, no. Here's the tricky thing about alcohol. It delivers suggestions to the brain that seem like very good ideas at the time. But within hours or weeks or months or sometimes even years, those brilliant notions turn out to have been impractical, foolish, or just downright wrong. And yet, every now and then, and this is what makes it tricky, I discover there is truth in wine and in the mixture of alcohol and pills. A few years after I graduated, from college, I went out dancing with a friend. It was the late 1970s, and disco was still the rage. She liked to mix wine and Valium. And following her example, I had acquired my own supply. But that night was the first time I had ever taken the two of them together. And even now, decades later, I can still remember how I felt. I wasn't lightheaded or tipsy. I didn't feel bloated or sick, as I sometimes do when I'm drinking. No, I was focused and alert, aware of my body, but free of its fleshy burden. I felt confident, capable, in love with the world, and glad to be alive. It was a sensation that, as young and as reckless, as stoned and as drunk as I was, I somehow knew was too good to be true. So what did I do? I marched off the dance floor, found the women's bathroom, entered a stall, fumbled around for that vial of Valium in my pocket, pried off the lid, and flushed the contents down the toilet. I can still see the water swirling in the bowl, washing those tiny pills into the Boston sewer system.